discuss about the historians and their sources. We know how historians are making history or making books, writing about ancient past. We studied earlier classes about the archaeologists, how they are getting the information. Archaeologists, they dig out the land, they excavate the earth and find out many of the materials from the earth. So carefully studying about all these materials, they find out how people lived in the ancient past. Also many informations they are getting through these coins or any remains or artifacts they collected from the earth. Now we know that historians use different types of sources for learning about the past, okay, depending upon the period and their nature of investigation. We have in the previous class in the 6th standard we studied about the Gupta dynasty and Harshavardhana, and this year we are going to study about 1000 years from 700 to 1750, this period of the Delhi Sultans and Mughal rulers. Okay, all these we are going to study in this textbook in the coming lessons. Okay, how historians are getting the information about the past. Okay, there are many types of sources for the historians for studying about the past history of our subcontinent. So they still rely on coins or inscriptions and architecture of the buildings especially, and also many of the textual records also are there. So historians study about these coins introduced by the issued by the rulers and inscriptions of the rulers, architectural designs of the monuments or buildings. From there these all they get the conclusion or they get the information how people lived here, how was the administration, etc. So here we can find many of the books, especially we know that the chronicles and religious texts or holy textbooks were available. These books we know there were no printing available, so that only these books were manuscripts, handwritten copies. Scribes copied these books. Okay, if scribes are the people who are writing the books, okay, copying the books. If there are 10 copies needed of one book, the scribes used to write it 10 times. 10 books they had to write down. There are also some significant changes they had made, because when a scribe after 100 years or 200 years, when scribes are writing the books, they might have not understood what was written by the previous book. Okay, sometimes they may not be able to. These are handwritten books only, so they may not be able to read completely their handwriting, the previously which was written. So they may guess something else and they may change that word or sentence also. Like that, after many centuries, if we take the history of 1000 years, every centuries or after many centuries, what were the books written, may be completely different than the original copies. Okay, many changes have made, many significant changes, especially the meaning of the words might have changed from the original copies. So these all are taking place. We know that in the medieval period or ancient period, what were the books were available, what were the books were written, which are available, which are collected by the people and preserved in the archives and libraries at present. Okay, we know that there are no printing press during that period. Only scribes copied the manuscripts by hand. Okay, now we can find that many or changes occurred due to this continuously copying. Okay, here some of the changes, a word or a syllable all might have changed the entire sentence, the meaning of the entire sentence also changes. So that many centuries continuously they were copying these all books. Okay, so the original version and the present day version may be different. Okay, we can also find out different from one book is different from another. Okay, so here original manuscript and which is available here is different. That means we can find the original author of the book, what he meant for while writing the book was meaning has completely changed today. So we also depend upon the copies of the made by the later scribes. So whatever the historians are going through the copies of the books written, the latest books were written, so that sometimes the historians have get confusion. So they go through all the books what were written ancient period and they compare the modern books, the latest version also. Then they arrive in a conclusion of the meaning of the books. Okay, the 14th century also chronicler like Ziauddin Barani, he wrote in his chronicle, first chronicle in 1356 and another version 2 years later. Okay, Ziauddin Barani wrote his chronicle and in 1356 and after 2 years he wrote the second book. But these two are different from each other. When the historians found these books, so this is the best example we can say, these are completely different. We know that these books, historians did not know the first book was existing because it was found out later only. The historians got from the archives or libraries the second book first, and up to 1960s it was not known by the historians there was a first book. Okay, so first chronicler and second chronicler, when they compared, they found much differences because this was hidden in the library. The first book was hidden in the library. When they got it in 1960s, historians studied or compared the two books. It was much different. In the next class, we will study about the new social and political groups existed in the subcontinent. Good morning, children. In the previous class, we have studied the history of 1,000 years. What were the changes occurring or occurred in this period? Okay, especially we studied about the differences in map pointing or map making. Okay, drawing of map. What were the changes occurred? Even the place names also changed. Today, we are going to study about the new and old terminologies. So what were the terms used in the olden days and presently also. So we can find out some of the informations, especially last class we studied about different maps, two types of maps which were made in different periods. Many years after. Okay, one map, the first map was prepared and second map after 600 years it was made. So what changes occurred, or even the place names and spellings also. So here also we are getting many informations from these maps. Okay, so here we can find many changes occurring in the languages and place names. We know recently we have changed the name of many places in our country. So all over the world it happens. Especially we know that Mumbai, which is now we say Mumbai, and it was known as Bombay, Madras. Now it is Chennai. Like that, many changes are occurring. Even in the languages also, we know variety of languages are spoken in the Indian subcontinent. Large number of languages are spoken in our country. So in the languages also many changes have occurred. We studied earlier class about Vedic Vedas. Okay, there are 4 Vedas, and what were the language? What was the language of the Vedas? Okay, Vedic language, or it is especially in the Sanskrit language. But now which is the Sanskrit language which we are learning in the schools are completely different than the Vedic Sanskrit. Like that, languages also have changed. The languages also, many of the words and pronunciation has changed. Words and meanings have changed. Okay, from very ancient period, now what changes occurring in the language also. We can find many differences in the languages and place names and many of the things. Okay, so in the we can say, for one example, in the medieval Persian languages. Now changes occurring. Okay, it is different from the modern Persian language. Even our English also, the language which we are speaking in English, that also has many changes occurred. In olden days, what was the vocabulary or grammar or meanings used in this language has changed now. The changes occurring in almost all fields. Okay, now we can say about our country. We can take the example, our country which is known as India. Okay, but it has many other names also, like Bharat and Hindustan. In olden days, when it was pronounced, India was known as Hindustan, not the entire India. It was only a particular area of India. The present day, it's a modern nation state, like India is a country. Okay, in the world map, we can find India as a country. The boundaries are marked properly. Okay, so this term was used as a Hindustan. India was earlier known as Hindustan, but not the entire present India was known as. Okay, only some regions. Okay, we can say in the 13th century, this term was used by a chronicler. Okay, one who writes chronicles, a written record of. Okay, for the chroniclers are mainly court chroniclers. We can find in the medieval period during the rule of Delhi sultans and all. People who writes official account for the kings or sultan. So here in the 13th century, Minhaj-e-Siraj, he was a chronicler who wrote in the Persian language. Okay, so he meant the areas of Punjab and Haryana and the lands between the Ganga and Yamuna. This region was known as Hindustan, not the entire area. Remember that the regions which are under the control of Delhi Sultans. Okay, so which are the part of the dominions of the Delhi Sultan, that is Punjab, Haryana and the regions between Ganga and Yamuna. That means this is only in the North India surrounding the Delhi region. So this was known as Hindustan. So when we are coming later on, this term has a little more broad concept, which means more areas, okay, around these regions, more areas were captured by the Delhi Sultans and they expanded their territory. So later on, Hindustan came to be known as the regions under the control of Delhi. But we remember that this period it was not included the South India. So Hindustan was not included in South India. South India was not at all part of Hindustan. Okay, South India was differently known. Now, when we are studying about when Babur invaded India, okay, or the Hindustan region, Babur considered the geography of this entire region of Hindustan, geography and its fauna, everything, the culture of the people, okay, all together in his books it is written as Hindustan, the regions where the people living in the surrounding Delhi and all, okay, all its geography, all these regions together known as the Hindustan. In the 14th century, the poet Amir Khusrau, he used the word Hind. Okay, so while the idea of geographical and cultural entity like India did exit the term, Hindustan did not carry the political or national meanings which are associated with today. Now we can find the India from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Arunachal Pradesh to Gujarat, that is India. But the entire India, the present India was not known as Hindustan. Only a particular region where the Delhi Sultanate was existed. Okay. Now historians today also have to be careful about the terms using, because it is meant the different things in the past. Now the historians are which are the terms they are using were different in the ancient period or modern period. For example, we can take a simple word foreigner. What do you mean by foreigner? Foreigner means a person who is from abroad, not Indian. A person who is not a Indian or a person who is coming from abroad is a foreigner. Okay. So in other languages, in Hindi also we can say that a foreigner is a person. We say in Hindi the Pardeshi is a term used, and even in the Persian language this word has another meaning, Ajnabi. We know that we are familiar with these words which means a foreigner. Also earlier we know that one who is coming from other country in the modern period is a foreigner. But in the olden days it was not like that. A foreigner was a stranger who appeared in our society, coming from another village, maybe 5 or 6 kilometers away from us. He is a foreigner. Okay, so that in the olden days, foreigner means a person coming from another society or another community or another village. Okay, even though he may be just 5 or 6 kilometers, but now we can find out India is one nation state. The persons who are living in other country or coming from other countries are called the foreigners. So in Hindi we can find out these words also, Pardeshi and Persian language Ajnabi. These all have the same meaning also. In that period also we can find a city dweller, a person who is living in a city, an urban area. He also considers a person coming from the village or the forest region. He is also a foreigner because he is not belonging to his community or his village or his society. At the same time, in a village or in any rural area, two farmers or two peasants who are living in the same village, but they may be belonging to different caste backgrounds or different religion or caste backgrounds, but they are not foreigners because they know each other, which means one person who is a stranger, who is coming from outer society, was considered as a foreigner. In the coming lesson we will study about the historians and how they find out the sources for writing history.